Just about 30 seconds and we will begin. So if you would like to go ahead and show your picture so we can see all your beautiful faces, we would appreciate that. And we are ready to start. We would like to welcome everybody to this initial conference that we are having and to this session. We are super excited that you are here. We have a couple of things to take care of before we begin. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Now, we'd like to welcome you to this conference. This is our first time ever doing a statewide virtual conference, and we are super excited to welcome you here. And thank you for spending your Saturday with us. We know it is really hard to work all week and then to spend Saturday doing an educational conference, but we are sure that you will be well fed today. We'd like to invite you to remember that this conference is all about exploring your passion and your purpose for being an educator and all of the things that you do there. What you'll need for this session is we ask you to keep your microphone on mute, but to also display your picture so we can see who's in the room and get a sense of who is here. We ask you to put both your first and last name as your screen name so we can see who you are. This session is being recorded. It will be eventually up on YouTube, so just be thinking about that a little bit. We ask you to have your materials ready and a place that you can create things. And we ask you to be here with an open heart and mind. We always start out our sessions with an essential question, and our essential question for this conference is, what sparks your passion and purpose as an educator? We will be discussing this a lot during our sessions today, and just ask you to keep that in the back of your mind. So right now, I would just do a little bit of reminder. We'd like to know who you are, where you're from, and what you teach. And if you could just type this in the chat window real quick, we'll just see who is in the room. I'm just going to give you just a couple minutes here. You can add a celebration in there. It could be either personal or professional. Awesome. Getting some great comments in there. Just go ahead and continue to share, and we're going to continue on with this. I just want to do a really quick reminder of the things that you are going to need for today. You are all able to grab your conference schedule, and that's going to be super important for you to have open all day. You will notice that each session has a Zoom link. It has your conference materials, and each one of those Zoom links is a different link. So make sure you have that conference schedule open. If you need it, the passcode for all sessions is ICN 2021. Make sure that if you need materials for your session, that you have those available. These are very jam-packed and participant-heavy sessions, and we want you to be prepared. Our schedule for today, we are starting at 9 o'clock in the south, and it's 8 o'clock up north, so congratulations wherever you are. We will continue through the day with our 4 sessions, taking quick breaks and lunch, and we will be finished by 2:30 Pacific time or 3:30 Mountain time. This is our team of ICN coaches. If you're familiar with ICN, you know that we try to be there as mentors or helpers wherever we can be. So you, in your sessions today, may see a lot of these faces. A lot of them will be doing actual presentations, but a lot of them will be coaching on the side. So just if you need anything, just reach out to any one of these people today. The last thing I want to share is, as an ICN, we do have a why statement. And we try to adhere to this why statement and employ it in all the things that we do. So I just want to share our why statement with you. The Idaho Coaching Network builds relationships with and among teachers to raise collective efficacy, to increase teacher expertise and effectiveness, and to build leadership skills so that all Idaho teachers and students achieve excellence in the classroom and in life. Now, I'm super excited to know that we are going to be working on building that collective efficacy as teachers in Idaho. We're going to be working on building our teacher expertise and sharing all the effective strategies that we use. And we are really excited to know that you are going to be able to build all of these things during these sessions today. So now I am so thrilled to be able to introduce to you Ashlee Hillin, who is a brand new teacher in the cohort, the Idaho Coaching Network cohort this year. This is our 8th and final cohort, and we are just thrilled that Ashlee is here to share with you today. Ashlee teaches first grade in Jerome at Jefferson Elementary, and this is her 6th year of teaching first grade. She may be young, but she's got lots of wisdom to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Ashlee. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Before we start, I'd just like to ask if you could have your slides open so that, because there are some slides where we will need to edit together, and then also have your interactive notebook ready to go, whether in paper format or electronically. So good morning. As Peggy said, I'm Ashlee Hillin. I've been teaching first grade here in Jerome for 6 years, but I wanted to share a little bit of my why behind why writing is so important to me before I jump in. I'm originally from a small town in Texas, and as you can see, I have a large immediate family and a large extended family, and all of these people lived very close together. We all lived around the same little cattle ranch that one of my great uncles had, and so our house is always overrun with people, friends, cousins, aunts, and uncles. It was always a really loud place, and it was always a really crazy place. And as a child, I was more quiet and subdued, and I would just sit and watch everything, and I didn't really talk to anyone. And I would a lot of times go hide in like a closet or something and read. But one year for Christmas, I think it was my 8th, I was 8 years old, my great grandmother gave me this little teddy bear journal. And I was like, oh, cool, a journal, awesome. But what I didn't know was that she had just given me one of the most important gifts I'd ever been given. Because as I started to write my messy little 8-year-old handwriting, just write down my thoughts and stuff that happened to me during the day, I finally found my voice. I found a place where I could express my thoughts and not have to fight to be the loudest or the most entertaining. I had a captive audience, and that helped me to develop the social skills and the confidence to be able to talk to people and not be overwhelmed, or to be able to share my ideas and not be afraid of not being heard. And so I love this quote by Alice Walker. It says, writing permits me to be more than I am, because it was through writing that I found my voice. And I always just think about all of the struggles that our students go through every day. And it gets worse and worse every year, of the things that they have to face in their families and in the world and everything. But writing time in the classroom, yes, we have standards to teach, and it's a needed skill for the students. But writing time in the classroom is a way for students to learn how to express themselves and to find their own voice. And so for today, our learning goals are, I want to focus on how writing can be a safe and creative time for students to express themselves. We're also going to discuss how children go through specific developmental stages as they learn to write. And then I'm going to share the writing workshop structure that I use in my classroom that allows my students to build more independence in writing and helps me to have the time to meet with students individually to meet their individual needs. So before we start, I know sometimes when we get to writing, we're like, oh my gosh, writing is so hard. Please help me. So if you guys could navigate to slide 4, and there's a link to the Jamboard right here. And so I would just like, if you click on that link, follow the Jamboard, you can click right here on this little sticky note and use a blue sticky note this time, because later we'll use different colors, but use a blue sticky note to record a question or problem you have concerning writing. If there's like something like a problem that's really just, you're struggling to figure out how to help your students or something, put it right here, and I will try to answer questions or share my ideas by the end of the session. And you just type and then click save. And then once you click save, just move your sticky note to the side. And I'll give you about 2 minutes to go ahead and add a sticky note. I apologize if my voice sounds muffled. I do have a little bit of a cold today. I'm trying to speak as clearly as possible. So I'm going to try to make it editable by everyone. So now if you refresh the page, you should be able to edit now. Allison. I'm going to give you about, I know that was a little bit of a delay, but maybe I'll give you about 1 more minute now that you can edit. Okay, I'm going to jump right back in. You want to go back to the slides, and I will come back to these sticky notes later on to hopefully help you figure out how to help your students. So I'm going to start by sharing the developmental progression of children's writing. And this was actually just a piece of paper that a colleague gave me my first year of teaching, and I didn't know how valuable it would be. So basically, this was made by Heidi Butkus, and she makes Heidi songs, and you can look at her website, and I have her information down here. But basically, students go through different developmental phases as they're writing and learning to write. They start with pictures, then they move into random scribbling, and then you'll see like scribble writing where they think they're making letters, but it's not quite there. And then you start to see symbols that represent letters. They just start to copy things that they see around in the environment, and they think they're letters, and so they write them down. So you'll get addition signs, equal signs, and things like that, as well as with letters. And there's a copy of this document in your interactive notebook if this copy is too small for you to see. But after that, they move up into random letters. And this is, they start to understand that letters make words, but they don't quite know how to do that yet. And so they're just putting all the letters they know together. And then they move into letter strings and then letter groups, because they start to see that groups of letters make words. And so they put groups of letters together like, hey, I made a word. And then they move into environmental print, where they start to copy, again, just like in stage 4, where they're copying symbols, they're starting to copy words that they see around and numbers. And then after that, they generally move into beginning sounds. So when they're writing words, they have the environmental print, but then so like this says, the horse can run, the horse can run. And so they just have the beginning sound of the letter right there. And then usually after beginning sounds, you see more of the phonetic or early inventive spelling. Well, we went to the store. And then they move into a more advanced version of the phonetic spelling, where the words start to look more like real words, but they just add letters around because they hear different sounds when they're sounding it out. Today, I want to play with the whiteboard and the shapes. I want to play with my friend. And then usually the last stage is transitional writing, which includes all the previous stages, plus some real spellings. So they'll still be spelling things phonetically, but you can see they're starting to spell like saw and day and one. They're starting to spell things correctly. And this is just the phases that they move through as they're writing. And each kid is different, and they move through the stages at different paces. And that's what makes writing such a challenge to teach. And so now, if you guys would move down to slide 6, I have some examples from my classroom. I took these examples last week. And this first one is a student. He drew a bear with the person inside his stomach, and he's a newcomer, so he writes in Spanish, but he's also just learning. And so right here, you can see he wrote his words, and I typed the letters that I thought I could see, but it says un oso come, which means a bear ate. And so if we look back at the development of the children's writing, the stages, what stage would you guys say this student is in? You can go ahead and unmute if you have an idea of which stage you would suggest.
I'd say the ninth or the
So you think he's on beginning sounds?
yeah, either
Okay.
that or the 10th, because like all of his letters are together. He doesn't have all of the sounds and he doesn't have spaces.
Yeah. So maybe beginning sounds or early inventive spelling.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Different idea? So I see in the chat someone said letter strings or maybe letter groups. And the only reason I would think this is not a letter string, it does look like a letter string because all the letters are together in one string. But if you, I can speak Spanish, so I was there when he wrote this. I helped him sound out these words. And so I remember that he wrote the words, he just put them together in a string, but in a letter string, it's usually just random letters, but each letter here represents a word. So like the U is for un, A, and then we have oso completely written right here, perfectly spelled. That means bear, and then como, where he wrote a K instead of a C, and then an A instead of an E, come, a bear ate. So it's different for everybody, and it's up to you. You know your kids and you know what they're doing, but because I know that I was there with him and I helped him write this, I know that these are not just random letters that he wrote in a line. So I would probably say early inventive spelling or beginning sounds, maybe a little bit of both in there, because I would look maybe more at what he could do independently instead of just with me. Does that sound good to everyone? Any disagreements or other opinions? Okay, we'll move right along to the next one. So this is another student, and she wrote, I think my opinion is my cat and dog are better than Among Us. That is my opinion. And so she drew an Among Us character here and then her cat and dog. So she is writing and an opinion piece. So go ahead and just unmute and tell me what stages you guys think, or you can put them in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. What stages you guys think the student might be in. So I see some people thinking in the chat that she's in transitional stage, and that would probably, so it includes all. So yeah, I would agree with that. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit nervous, so my words are mixing up, but she's spelling most words correctly. She just needs some punctuation help and some capitalization. So I would probably agree that she's in the transitional stage. Any other thoughts? Any different ideas of a different stage or something? Okay, we'll move into the third one. And this one is a little bit hard. He wrote, I vet vez are arrow because they make your eyes blind, which whenever he read this to me, he read, I like these because they make your eyes blind. So go ahead and just share what stage you think this student might be in. So someone thinks maybe letter groups, because there are some letter groups here that don't really make sense for the words that he said they were. Any other thoughts? Inventive spelling, because he has like because and they maybe. Or environmental print. Yeah, because he sees like blind is spelled correctly and I. Any other ideas? Partially early inventive spelling or early inventive spelling. Yeah, it's definitely possible for students to be in between stages. I had a really hard time trying to figure out what I thought he would be in. I went back and forth between beginning sounds, inventive spelling, and letter groups. So I'm just going to go ahead and just put it like right in the middle, because I wasn't sure, because I see a little bit of everything in here. But in this case, this is a time when you could go back and look at more of their writing to see patterns. So I could look at more of his stories and see if he has words that are spelled phonetically, or if there's just some other letter groups that don't really make sense, or if he has words that are spelled correctly, and just look for those patterns, and that will help you know, like the majority of his writing is in this stage. So I'm going to work with him on these things. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And then the last one, this is a language learner. So her spelling, she works really hard to spell, but she wrote, I like the beach. I don't like the storm. And because Mexico is hot. So she likes the beach, but she doesn't like when there's a storm. And because Mexico is hot, that's why she likes the beach. So go ahead and just let us know in the chat or just unmuting what stages you think this student is in. So inventive spelling. She's spelling like the and beach. Early inventive spelling. So I see a lot of inventive spelling and early inventive spelling. And so I'll go ahead and put it there. I think also environmental print. So she's probably in inventive, early inventive spelling, but she's using some environmental print also because she wrote the word because perfectly. And that is crazy hard for a language learner to do. So she has found this word somewhere in the room and copied it. Yes, and her picture does show Lori that she knows what she wants to write. And her opinion, this was an opinion unit, these stories I pulled from. And it was just interesting to me to see how they would split their paper in half and show you both sides. This year, I never had that happen. So anyway, but I could talk about my students writing forever because I just love it. So the main thing I wanted to show you guys with this is that we have 20, 25 students in our classes, maybe more, maybe less, depending on your district. And they're all working at different stages developmentally for writing. And it's really hard to just teach one lesson and have it meet every single student's need. And it's just like that with every skill, especially in the early grades. But the structure that I found that helps me have the time to meet with my students individually and to meet their individual writing needs is the writing workshop structure. And so I'm going to just jump in and share how the writing workshop looks in my classroom and the routines that we use that help it to be successful. So I use the Lucy Calkins units of study for opinion, narrative, and informative writing. That's the curriculum that my district has purchased, and I really love it. And it just starts every day. There's a 5 to 10 minute mini lesson where you're all together as a whole group for the lesson portion. And then the students have about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on their stamina, of independent writing every day. And that is the basics. So first, I want to talk about the mini lesson. And if you guys have questions as we go along, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will try to answer them. This is every mini lesson needs a gathering place. And with COVID restrictions, we weren't really allowed to come to the carpet as a group in our school. So I had my students just sit on the floor in front of their desks. So they were still kind of spread out, but we still had like the class togetherness feeling. But you have a place where you gather, and the lesson starts with a 1 to 2 minute motivation, like getting the kids really excited, or just like a basic anticipatory set that you can learn about in college, just something to really engage them, to be like where you act out or where you cause a situation. One lesson, the teacher walks with a jar of markers and accidentally spills all the markers on the kids, and so then the class is set up to write a story about the experience they just had of having markers spilled all over them. And so just something exciting and engaging, about 1 to 2 minutes to start with. And then I always reference the objective or the teaching point after that. So this is what just happened. We're really excited. And now this is what we're going to learn how to do today. And then I use the I do, we do practice model where I do it. I show them how to do it. Like I write my own story or they watch me create a character or something. And then we do it together as a class. And that only takes about 5 minutes. And we're not spending a lot of time doing that because we're just using like one little thing that we're practicing every day. And then after that, they have the you do portion where they go off and write and work on the things that we just practiced together. And then while they're doing their independent writing, we have conferencing and partner work where I can meet with individual students or groups of students on the same level and conference with them about what they're doing well and what they can work on, and also partner work, because so the partner work, saves saves me every day. So I just assign a partner for the students to work with. It's usually someone they sit close to, and it changes regularly because first graders get tired of each other really quickly. But if you have a different philosophy, you could have them have the same partner all year. But basically, if they have any questions or need help with anything, they talk to their partner first. They need to spell a word. If they need help with an idea, they talk with their partner first. And if their partner tries to help them, but it doesn't really work out, then they come to me. And so that kind of frees me up to be meeting individual needs, and to not be in those situations, where they're like, teacher, teacher, teacher. One of the routines that really helps the students meet independent are the writing folders. And they each have their own folder. And one side has a red dot, and that is where they keep their completed stories, or like a stop sign. We're done working on those. They're as perfect as we can get them. They're done. And then the other side has a green dot. These are stories that they want to keep working on, stories they ran out of time for, if they want to go back and add more words or more pictures, because we all have that situation where students finish, where the timer's done, writing time is over, and they still want to keep working. They can save it in here to work on tomorrow. And then I use 2 to 3 plastic sleeves in the brads for vocabulary words, checklists, rubrics, writing goals, or some of their very best work that they're really, really proud of. They'll put it in those sleeves, and it just helps them to feel really special. And it's also a really fun place and a really important place to put vocabulary words, because every day they're in their writing folder, and every day they will see those words right there. And the folders, excuse me, sorry, each unit of writing is like a section for the folder. So when we're working on unit 1, they will keep every piece of writing that they do for unit 1 in their folder. Before we move to unit 2, they take everything out and they take it home. So it's not like they're taking stories home every day, and their folders do get really full, but by the end of the unit, but the folder has still worked for me even when they are full. It's still pretty good, but we clean out the folder before we move to the next unit, and they get to start fresh on a new kind of writing. Then we also have like our paper trays, and I put examples of the kinds of paper in our paper trays in your interactive notebook if you just want to print those out and try them. But we have stapled, unstapled, front and back, all kinds of 4 different kinds of paper. And basically the point of it is to allow students to choose what kind of paper will best help them write their story. And also it takes that responsibility for me giving them paper away. If they need more paper, they just get up and they go get it, and they can organize it and staple it as they need. And I just have this sitting on a shelf, and they get up and they move around and they get paper as they need it. And it just gives them more independence and ownership of their daily work. And then also with our pencils, we have our pencils in a dull and a sharp can, and we don't sharpen pencils during writing time just because the noise is really distracting, and some students like quiet whenever they're working, but they can come and trade out their pencil for a sharp one if they need it at any time. So I also don't have to be worrying about pencils or paper or anything. So those are just responsibilities that I have been able to give to my students that free me up to be working on more important things. And then the last section I really wanted to focus on is the writing conferences. And these, I feel like, are the most important part of the writing workshop, because this is when students are working independently. I am then able to work with specific students. And so I use this record sheet, and I have a link for it down here in the speaker notes. And I also have a copy in your interactive notebook, but it's basically a delta and a star. So you keep track of the date because you can see students' progress. And then in every conference, you write one thing that they're doing well already, one thing that they are rocking with, and then one thing that they're going to work on. And you share this with the students. So one thing that you are doing well is writing words to match your pictures. One thing that we're going to work on is capitalizing the first letter of a sentence or something like that. And so this, you can keep a copy in their writing folder if you want, but I just keep a notebook for myself, and I just share it with the students as we go and progress through their goals. And it's another idea is if you do leadership notebooks, it would really probably be beneficial if students even kept a record of their own progress through your conferencing. So I meet with each student once or twice a week in a conference. Some students I meet with every day because they need that, and some students I just try not to forget them because they are doing so great that I usually like have my concerns with students that are struggling, but the higher kids and the students that are doing well also need our help. So once or twice a week, I meet with every single student. And then we always review our expectations. So in your interactive notebook, I gave an example of a checklist. I'm just going to move down here. So if this is a checklist for what should be in their story, I review the expectations with the student in the conference. Are you putting spaces between your words? Are you spelling tricky words the best you can? And that kind of thing. And then you're reviewing the expectations of what I taught today. So maybe today I taught how to use dialogue bubbles. And so I'm going to check to see if the students are doing that in their writing. So just review the expectations, because we want to hold all of our students to high expectations. And then just some other resources that I use that help that are these phonics beads. Sorry. These phonics beads I actually learned from Deb Glacier in the Reading Teacher's Top 10 Tools. And it's just a string of wooden beads tied together, and students can use them to sound out words. And this is the number one thing as a first grade teacher that has freed up my time for helping individual student needs, because every student always wants help sounding out words. And so now they can do it themselves, and they can say cat, and spell the word from the sounds that they hear. This tool has been phenomenal this past year when we've been using it. It's really amazing. Another tool that I have, it's just part of my curriculum, is the If Then book from Lucy Calkins. So like it tells about if your students are doing this, then teach them that. And I'm gonna share some of this with you guys later. But another thing we have a word wall, and I can't show it to you because it's on another wall, but we do have high frequency words and other words, and students will even come up with words that we need to put on our word wall. So we do have a word wall with words that students can reference, and that's probably how that one student spelled because it is on our word wall, and the students can go to the word wall and find the words that they need. Okay. Now, I know that's a lot of information that I just gave you, but now I want to move into a quick little reflection. And if you could move to your interactive notebook, it's slide 5. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to type one thing about your current writing routine that's going well. So when you're teaching writing, what's one thing that you want to keep that's really working for you? And then also one aspect of the writing workshop structure that you want to try. Maybe you don't want to completely change your teaching at the end of the year, or maybe you're looking forward to next year and you think the writing folders would be a cool idea or something. But go ahead and write one aspect of the writing workshop structure that you want to try, and then finally write how you can give your students more independence during writing time. And I'll go ahead and give you 5 minutes. So at about 9:40, 9:42 or 3, we will come back together and share what we have written. Okay, so Camilla asked if we all edit the same document. No, it'd be best if you had your own interactive notebook, if you could just make a copy of it so that you have your own. And if you don't have it electronically, you can go ahead and respond just on a piece of paper.
If you need it, the links are actually in the chat window. You can find them there if you need them as well.
Okay, I see that you need the links again. Peggy, can we just copy and paste them again into the chat?
Yeah, I can put them back in again. Hang on.
Go ahead and just give me one more minute. Okay, so I'm going to answer 2 quick questions that are in the chat, and then I ask if a few people would be willing to share. Just go ahead and be prepared for that. So the first question is, what grades are the books written for? And when you buy the curriculum, this book is written specifically for first grade. But if you buy the curriculum, then you'll get a copy of the book for the grade level that you need. Also, I don't provide a list of high frequency words in their folder because we have them on the word wall. And so if a student asks me how to spell a high frequency word, I point them immediately to the word wall. And that's just how I handle that. But if you don't have a word wall or easy access to something like that, that's definitely a good idea to put words in their folder that make it a reference. Okay, now, do we have any brave volunteers that would like to share one thing about their current writing routine that's going well?
I don't know if you can hear me very well, but I can share if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, right. Awesome. I put on there that we have a graphic organizer on the wall, and you can kind of see it behind me. Let's see. We have, well, one's for an essay and one's for a paragraph, but the one in the classroom is more user-friendly. And we have the graphic organizer, and we also have the rubric so the kids know how many points they get. They have a total of 6 points they can earn. And we also have a word wall when they come across vocabulary that they don't know. The students really enjoy sharing their work, and I post it on the board and we go through and see how many points they earned for their paragraph. So that's what we do currently, and they seem to really enjoy that.
Awesome. Sounds great. Would someone like to share one aspect of the writing workshop structure they would like to try? See, Nicole put in the chat that her class does daily journal prompts first thing in the morning. Gives it kids a chance to come in and immediately put down their thoughts before they start the day.
Well, I want to try the writing conference. I want to work on goals more with my students individually for the
Yeah,
writing.
the conferences to me make all the difference, because I know that in my whole group teaching, I can only reach like the middle of the road kids, and I have so many more needs in my classroom. So I'm excited for you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Allison wrote that she wants to try the phonics beads, especially for kindergartners, and do the folders as well. Would anyone like to share an idea or a way that they give their students more independence during writing time? Okay, that's fine if you don't have any thoughts right now, but the more independence you can give your students, the more time you have to meet individual student needs. So just go ahead and think about that as you think about how you want to structure your writing instruction. So now we're going to move into scenarios. And these are straight from the If Then book. This is an example. So it's if your students are doing this, then when you're meeting with them, you acknowledge that they're doing well, and then you teach them something. And then you leave them with a takeaway, like something on a sticky note, or a reference to an anchor chart, or something that something concrete that they can reference when they're having this problem again. So the example is, if the writer has words on the page, but they're difficult to read, you basically, when you're meeting with the child, you have their paper and you're like, well, I don't know what this says. So you say, read me your story. And when they try to read what they've written and they can't, then you try to read it and then you can't, they understand. Then you can kind of talk about how we need to practice writing words so we can read them. And so you have the child think of a word they want to write that's relevant to their story, and encourage them to start writing it. So just kind of watch their process of how they write. And then you'll see if they're doing letter sounds or if they're doing letter strings, if they're writing from the beginning sound. Then it says, you share what I'm noticing is that you say the word, you hear the first sound, and then you write that down, but then you're done. If you want to write so people can read it, you need to say the word again and hear more sounds. And so then you help the student go back and you write the word to say it. So then on the takeaway, it's not IGTS, but I go to school. So when they're writing go, you go, oh, and they write the G, and then they say the word again, go, oh, and get the O. And so when they reread, they can sound it out and see that it's a real word, and they can understand what they've written. And you can tell the kids, if you get a lot of sounds down, when you come to a place where there are no more sounds, you leave a space, so that will show people you're done. And so that's basically how you could address that problem. And I see in the chat, people are asking for the author of the If Then book, and it is Lucy Calkins. I can just write her name. And I'm not sure if she sells it separately, but it does come with her curriculum. So she's the author of that book. So now what you guys are going to do is you're going to go into breakout rooms. And if you're in breakout room 1, you will do scenario 1. Breakout room 2 will be scenario 2. So you have an if, and then I have given you options of what you could possibly use to teach your students. Or there's also an option for if you want to write your own teaching point. And these are all based around like first grade, kindergarten issues. So if you teach a higher grade, or if you're thinking about a specific student, you might choose a different option. And then, so basically just drag your option over here of what you choose. And then I want you, each group, to type or come up with something that the student can take away from their writing, like a note or a list of ideas or something like that. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes in your breakout rooms to, we're going to give you about 10 minutes in breakout rooms to just discuss with your group and put them in your options, and then we'll come back together. So when you get your invitation to a breakout room, if you could just click accept, and that will just take you out there.
Thank you, Ashlee. Just so you all know, this is my first time of assigning multiple people to a breakout room. So please watch. And if you wouldn't mind turning on your video so that when you're in that breakout room, you can have that discussion with people. We are going to be doing 6 breakout rooms. So just go ahead and just accept when that comes across. And I'm going to try it
And
now.
it should tell you in your group if you're breakout room 1 or 2 or what.
It will when it comes across, yes.
Does it work?
It worked. Okay, Ashlee, I'm going to go ahead and go into a breakout room. So you are on your own.
Okay, so the ending time is what time?
It will be at 9, sorry, yeah, 9. It's in 9 minutes.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so it looks like everyone is back. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next about 5 minutes. If you guys could just go through the slides, and I want you to look at least there's only 6 groups, so look at least 2 other slides and just leave comments. Maybe you agree with what was written or chosen, or maybe you have a different idea. And if you don't know how to make a comment, you just click on this little dialog box with the plus sign in it, and you just add a comment to the side. And I'd ask if you could leave at least 2 or 3 comments, and I'll give you about 4 minutes. So at 10:07, we'll come back and see other people's comments. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat and I will do my best. Okay, so I just want to thank you guys for all the work you're doing for students and how you're here on a Saturday trying to learn and do better to better meet their needs. And I just encourage you to go through these scenarios after the conference or when you have free time sometime and look at what the other groups have done, read some more comments, and there are 10 scenarios. So you could go through and look at even some of the scenarios that we didn't complete today to see what if this is a problem in your classroom and what some of the options are. Also, I just want to let you know that I am available anytime for if you guys want to just email me some questions or if you want to brainstorm solutions for anything, just email me anytime, ashley.hillin@jeromeschool.org. But before I end, I did want to share that for me, writing is one of the most fun things that I do in my class. And if you're really struggling to find creative ways or to foster creativity with your students, there's a lot of resources out there to just get kids excited and doing fun things. So one website that we have used, my students have used all year long, is storyboardthat.com, and it's available for free, or you could buy a license if you want more access to more tools. But my students have used the free version all year, and this is just an example of a storyboard that a student can create. They get to make their own characters, backgrounds, change their colors, they add the words in. I've obviously created this one for you guys. Everything is spelled correctly, but my students really amaze me. We started this at the beginning of the year, and it's just something they can do in their free time in their computer, or sometimes if writing time is really short for the day, we'll just get on Storyboard That and they'll make a story. And my students have taught me how to change the characters' positions, how to change all kinds of things I didn't even know how to do, and they're only 6 and 7 years old. So this is a really cool resource that you can use for free. Another thing that we do is, if writing is starting to be like pulling teeth with kids, sometimes I'll just pause the unit and we'll just take a few days to do some silly, fun writing, or I'll have a silly picture and they'll come up with a story about what's happening in the picture, or we'll write a class story. And I'm just remembering some of the stories my students wrote about these pictures. And one of them was, this penguin woke up the bear and then the bear just ate him. Like, I don't know, they're just really silly and fun. And the more fun you can have with it, and the more energy and enthusiasm you can share, the more excited and creative the kids will be. Another thing is, class stories. So like if you create an event like a fire drill, or you don't create, if something happens to you guys as a whole class, it can be fun to write a story about it, or do a story where each kid makes up a different sentence for the story. And those can create like silly stories. Also, a really, really fun thing for students is to share what they've written. And so sometimes I'll put groups of students together and they will act out each other's stories, or we'll even do puppet shows and things. So just as the sky's the limit, guys, whatever you can do to make writing fun for your students, it will change their life. It will change their world, and it will open up so much for them if they can write and share their ideas with other people. Now, on the question slide, I'm going to move down. I have too many screens. If we can go back to this Jamboard and move to page 2, I'd just like to give you about 1 minute or 2 minutes to share just an aha from the session, just something that is really exciting that you want to try, or just an idea you've never thought of before. And I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to go back and answer some of your questions from the other slide. So if you don't remember how to get to the Jamboard, you just click on this little Jamboard sign right here, and then the link is right here. You can just click on it. Or if you just want to share your idea in the chat, that's fine too. Okay, so if you want to finish up your ahas, I'm just going to move to the first slide of this Jamboard, and I added some yellow sticky notes. And hopefully I've addressed your concerns. So one concern was finding time during the day to give students enough time to do their best writing and editing. And I would just say you just have to do the best you can. Our schedules are tough, and if your school is anything like our school, our schedule changed all year long, and it was definitely a challenge. But just do the best you can. And if, like, I know when my students are writing, and then a different day will be used for editing, so they wouldn't have independent writing time that day. It would just be used for editing. So it just make your time work the best you can. Also, similar question, how do you have consistent time? And you just have to make it a priority and do the best you can. My first year of teaching, I think even my second year of teaching, we only did writing twice a week. And it was just the only way that we could do it. And so just find what works for you and try to make it as consistent as possible, because once the students learn the routines,
Will you get me some of my crackers?
that's how they get.
That's fine.
That's how
I
they get
haven't eaten any, so I probably should just eat something.
Also, students staying on task by themselves. I use the daily 5 pattern for building stamina with my students. So I send them off to independently write, and they have all of the expectations of what they're supposed to do. But as soon as one student is off task, I ring the bell or we end it. And we talk about what happened. We talk about how many minutes we spent. And we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year building the stamina. So sometimes it'll only be 2 minutes before someone is off task. But as soon as you see someone off task, you stop and you talk about what happened. Students could even try again to get more minutes. And it's really fun if you keep track of their minutes, because then they want to beat their time and things like that. So you just have to work on building the stamina. And it is April. We only have 5 more weeks of school, and my students right now can only work independently for 15 minutes. Other years I've had students that could work longer, but this year, just the energy level of the class, after 15 minutes, they're done. And so that's you just have to work with what your students can do. Also, like these 3 questions, everyone's at different levels. For students not knowing what to do or not knowing what you're talking about, that's when you can really work on their specific needs in your writing conferences, or just pull them aside and say, just do the best you can, remembering that. And then if you feel like students over here, I feel like my students depend so heavily on sentence stems. I can't get them to start on their own. Even now at the end of the year, we're only writing sentences that are formatted by me instead of coming from the student's thinking. So just an idea, it might not be a magical fix everything idea, but try gradually removing the sentence stems. So maybe ask your students to write 3 sentences, but only give them a sentence stem for the first sentence. So this is how I want you to introduce your paragraph or your sentences, like, I like blank. And then have them write 2 more sentences of why they like that without any sentence stems. And that will help them to start figuring out how to formulate their own sentences. Another idea I just thought of is just have them talk about it. Whether it's the prompt or whatever they're writing about, just have them tell you. And then just have them write the words that they said down on their paper. That's what I do with my language learners, because they can tell me in Spanish, and sometimes they want to just write it in Spanish, or sometimes they will want to change it to English, but I'm like, tell me what you want, just talk to me, because students can talk easier than they can write. And if they can figure out that what they say they can write, that's a very powerful skill. And then just concerns about students having creativity or caring about how their sentences are built or structured, or students that hate writing. I mean, we're always going to I have students that don't really like to write, but it's just an expectation in my class. And sometimes they'll sit there and refuse, and I'm just like, okay, well, you have to have something on your paper. And if they don't, then we apply consequences. So it just depends on your routines and your structure. But the more excited and enthusiastic as you can be, the more students will have that buy-in. And so I always reference like our favorite authors, Dave Pilkey, who wrote Captain Underpants and stuff. We read a lot of those books in our class. And I'm like, when we're writing, I'm like, you guys are just like him. You are authors too. And if they can really see that, hey, I am an author, that could really help. And also one more, students coming to talk to you about their writing and making a long line. It's just a routine thing. You can have specific days set aside where students share their writing so they feel like their voice is being heard. Or another idea, a second grade teacher here at our school, during reading time, she uses red and green solo cups. And students will show a green cup when they're working and they don't need her, but then they'll change it to a red cup whenever they need help. And so then she could just come to the students who have red cups or who are ready to read to her or something. And so that might be a routine or an idea that you could try. But anyway, just want to thank you guys for coming today, for listening to me talk about everything that I love about writing and about what's working for me right now. And I just want to say that thank you. And don't forget to make writing fun. Don't forget to have fun with it. And if you're pulling your hair out, going crazy with it, it's a time to stop, take a break, and do something silly. And that's just my philosophy. And also just remember, if you have any questions, email me anytime and I'll be happy to help or brainstorm with you. And thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Ashlee. We do appreciate all of the work that you've put into sharing all of these wonderful ideas. I'm sure that when you take a chance to look at the Jamboard, you're going to be thrilled to note that people are super excited about the writing folders and conferencing and all of the ideas that you've shared. If you do have any questions, please reach out to Ashlee. She is very knowledgeable and very willing to share not only her tricks of the trade, but the resources she can give you for that as well. Just a quick reminder, this session is now over, but you have a 10-minute break, and then you will need to move into your next session. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.